Such is life. Like a bantha. Looks pretty good. And a DJ celebration, like before we got in on Thursday, like, hey, let's get people in the audience who know how to ride a bantha. And I got these 4 people to go up there, and they were just, oh, we're not. Are they? I don't know how. What was that? Oh, that was you? Eric? Eric? That was not me. Let me check. You can hear what we're... How is that possible? Why can I not control that? Yeah, because I disabled all the audio going in. There's nobody in the chat right now, right? Oh, there's one. Check. Did you hear that? Oh, that's right. This is a delay, I guess. Yeah. Now you can only hear what I'm saying. It might be my fucking camera. Yeah. Oh, like you don't in this show? Jeez. Oh, well, I'll just play last week. Do you watch last week's episode? I'm just wondering if it's going to come through on both microphones during the show. Yeah. No, my DSLR. Yeah, it picks up audio too. No. I wish it was. Sorry about that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bounty Hunt, a UTD Network podcast where we hunt down all the extra content in the Star Wars universe for the last time for a little bit. But I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me to talk all about a very emotional episode of Star Wars television is the full crew on a Sunday evening, starting off with Dr. Corey Helton. What's up, buddy?
Hello. Doing good. Man, I can't believe Kenobi came and went. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, June seemed to be especially fast because of this, but yes, we lost our man just as soon as we found him, but luckily, the one constant we have is the presence of Dr. Charles Hankel.
I'm still here. Still here. I'm wearing a polo. I just want to throw that out there because Eric brought it up. This is the fanciest I've ever been on this show, except for the Utini Awards. The Utinis.
You decided to dress respectfully for the finale.
Yeah, I mean, to say goodbye, paying my respects to Obi-Wan for I don't know, hopefully not the last time, but we'll see.
We will find out. Ewan may be done. Obi-Wan may be done. But as constant as the North Star to wandering sailors is the presence of Wes Jenkins.
Hello, everyone. I am without words to say at the ending of this show, but it's hot outside. It is so damn hot that, in fact, we had to cut fishing ship short yesterday. Came in at about noon because it was nearly 95 degrees on the water, which is freaking unheard of. So
that's awful.
We had a wonderful time. So.
Well, good. I hope all y'all are staying safe, whether it be heat, whether it be whatever's going on. We hope that we're going to give you a little bit of cool air emotionally and physically during this show. We can't do it physically. Just turn your air up or get a fan. But if this is your first bounty hunt, I apologize. This is not our best intro, but it is a great show. We go through all the Star Wars shows on Disney+. We're going to give you a brief recap, spoiler-filled, complete spoilers here on out. Spoiler for all of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what we loved. We're going to talk about little bits and pieces. Quick disclaimer before we begin today's show. Today is going to be about Part 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we're going to go through it as we normally do. However, next Monday, so not tomorrow, June 27th, but the first show of July, on The Living Force, we are actually going to do a full show all about Obi-Wan Kenobi on that show for our other main feed. I know that we have a lot of overlap. A lot of you listen to both shows. We really appreciate it. But we'd like to go a little deeper into kind of the whole universe of Obi-Wan Kenobi, maybe some book recommendations, things like that. So stay tuned next week. Today is going to be mostly about episode 6. All right, guys. Let's just jump into it. This was such a full, dense episode, and this is what happened in episode 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We open on Reva, landing on Tatooine, looking for Owen Lars as Vader chases Obi-Wan and the fleeing refugees through space. Roken confides in Obi-Wan that they may not be able to outrun the Empire, and Obi-Wan tells Leia he has to leave, and she is the future. Back on Tatooine, Owen is warned of Reva's inquiries, and he and Beru begin to arm up for their arrival. Beru is not leaving her home, and she is ready to freaking kick some ass. Obi-Wan, meanwhile, gives Leia Tala's holster and charges Haja with getting Leia home safe. He then leaves, lands on a nearby planet, and Obi-Wan stands to face Vader straight on. He will do what he must as he strikes the classic pose of General Kenobi. The two battle intensely, using sabers and the Force, and their fight is interspersed with Reva's attack on the Lars homestead. Owen and Beru hold Reva off as best they can, but eventually she chases Luke into the Dune Sea. Obi-Wan and Vader are far more evenly matched in their last battle, but Vader eventually subdues Obi-Wan again, nearly crushing him with boulders. As the rocks almost crush him, Obi-Wan imagines Leia and Luke and finds the strength to rise again and chase after Vader. Filled with new vigor and the full power of the Force, Obi-Wan attacks Vader's suit, commands an armada of boulders to fly against him, and eventually slashes open his mask, revealing a scarred Anakin Skywalker. The two former brothers share a heartbreaking conversation as Obi-Wan apologizes to his old friend for all of it, and Vader reveals that it was not Obi-Wan who killed Anakin, it was him. Vader gasps for breath, and Obi-Wan leaves him once again, calling him Darth forevermore. Reva then catches up to Luke on Tatooine, and with the chance to cut him down, she sees him not as a Skywalker child, but as a frightened kid from the Jedi Temple herself. She stays her blade before carrying him home to the homestead. She breaks down in Obi-Wan's arms, asking if she has now become Vader, but no, she has risen above him, and her path is now her own. Back on Mustafar, Palpatine, what's up, Papa Palps, questions Vader's obsession with Kenobi, but Vader says he is no longer a concern and he only lives to serve the Emperor. Back on Alderaan, Leia shows off her new holster to her mother and father, but they have a surprise for her, a visit from her dear friend Ben Kenobi. Obi-Wan and our Lord and Savior Bail Organa embrace before he and Leia are afforded a true goodbye, and Obi-Wan tells Leia how she best embodies the traits of both her mother and her father. Obi-Wan returns to Tatooine a changed man. He tells Owen that Luke will be safe in the care of his aunt and uncle, but Owen asks if Ben wants to meet him. Obi-Wan walks over to the boy and simply says, "Hello there." Atop his AOP, Obi-Wan rides off into the desert in search of new adventures and finds what he has been waiting for, the Force ghost of his old master, Qui-Gon Jinn, they have quite a way to go. That's it, guy. Okay. No, boy. Whew, okay.
Beautiful.
Not good. Not good. Let's just go around. Base thoughts. Charles, start with you, man. This is the last episode. How'd they do?
I loved it. I loved every episode up to this point, and I really felt like for the story that they were telling, they finished it really strongly. And that was important because things haven't all been planned out, haven't always necessarily finished strongly in recent years, but they did this, I think, from front to back really, really well. There are still those little tiny things that you can nitpick or say, well, why'd they do this versus this? Those are always going to be there. But at the end of the day, what this episode delivered on more than absolutely anything were those character moments. And that's why we're watching the show. We're watching the show because we love Obi-Wan Kenobi dearly, because we love Anakin Skywalker dearly. And we've dreamed about these years in between trilogies for so long. And now we got those answers. Huge payoff. I think that just overall, the creators of these shows are improving with everyone that they do. And I'm just excited.
Amazing. Love that.
Yeah, I will totally echo that. Like, this was the Obi-Wan story that was always sort of missing, I feel like. I mean, like you say, Charles, you can get nitpicky about some of the subtle things they did, editing and effects and CGI and maybe small character moments, quote unquote plot holes, things like that. But like, I feel like overall, like, it was just a fantastic story from start to finish, which hasn't really been the case in every single Star Wars project. There's been stuff that seems to take things off the rails and things like that. And this was just, 6 episodes of really concise storytelling that really went from point A to point B. And man, the payoff was really good. The finale was phenomenal. I really loved it. Overall, I just feel that they totally nailed this show. I couldn't have asked for anything else, and I was left not with wanting in any way. Like, I just feel like everything satisfied me perfectly. And, we had to manage our expectations. We tried and failed with this show, and I feel like I was justly rewarded. It just felt like it was just a great project from start to finish.
Yeah. Wes?
So I'm speaking solely for this episode that we saw in the finale. I feel like we got everything that helped mesh the characters from episode 3 into episode 4. Most notably, Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. And for me, they did what I needed them to do to help me see that Darth Vader in the suit is Anakin Skywalker. They did even if they didn't do what they did in this episode with having Anakin's face that you could see through the helmet, hear his voice go back and forth with the vocoder. They did a phenomenal job through episodes 1 through 5 of doing that without having to do this, but this was just cherry on top, creme de la creme. They did an amazing job. I mean, the camera shots, just notably all of the camera shots, all of the CGI, all of the appearances of the characters involved in this is so over the top from a movie making standpoint. I just can't wait to see what they're going to do like in 6 months from now, because technology is advancing so fast.
Yeah. I'm in complete agreement with you guys, and I'll take it one step further. I think that episodes 5 and 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi sit up there with parts 1 and 2 of Twilight of the Apprentice from Rebels, the last 2 episodes of the Siege of Mandalore and Clone
I thought you were going
Wars.
to just say Twilight.
Twilight, Breaking Dawn, parts 1 and 2. In the way that I think episodes 5 and 6, I think are 2 back-to-back 10 out of 10s for me, and had such an impressive package of work that by the end of this, I told a bunch of folks in the team, and I think I've said this publicly elsewhere, I didn't physically cry as much watching a Star Wars project as I did watching episode 6 than maybe, I don't know, the Rise of Skywalker trailer. This episode, specifically this one, got me, especially in the Obi-Wan Anakin conversation, really. That I know we'll get into details later on. But then, of course, all the epilogue stuff, which is kind of what I'll call it. You know, all the going to Alderaan, going to Tatooine. Like, they just did such a great job. And beat for beat, I agree. The technical execution by Deborah Chow, by the writing team, by the effects team was just incredible. I just think it was absolutely being learned of all the things from Mando, but Boba Fett, as they've been using the volume more, as they've been workshopping this technology. It's like what George has always done, right? Is from the very beginning, I want to make this tech, and then with each episode of Star Wars I do, or each movie I produce, we're going to make it better and better and better. And if this is where we are now, after year 3 or 4 of doing this, like it's ridiculous to think of where we're going to go from here on.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on something that you guys said about episode 4, right? Because I think we talked early in Bounty Hunt that the earliest episodes of this show were doing a ton of episode 3 vibes. Like, it was prequel kid vibes, and we were very much getting that idea. And now I think we would agree that this series has probably now altered episode 4 more than episode 3. In a great way. So where do you guys think Obi-Wan, Leia, and Vader specifically, how do they now change for you in A New Hope after having watched this series?
Well, I think the giant thing is that I never in a million years dreamed that we would ever get this content is the relationship between Leia, and when she recognizes Ben's name and like, oh, Ben Kenobi, he's here. Like,
yes.
Like that just that has a total new meaning for me now. Like I never would have guessed that the Kenobi show would give us, a definite define the relationship between who Ben Kenobi is and Leia, and like I'm never gonna be able to look at that the same after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Wes.
I was just gonna say the scene when Obi-Wan is sitting down with Luke and he says, Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father is completely canonized. They kept it. They kept the essence of that whole scene together with what they put in this last episode, in episode 6.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
For me, I think, like you were saying earlier, Wes, now when you see Vader, you do think that's Anakin in the suit. In a similar way, as big of an Obi-Wan fan as I am, Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan on its own, that's not what made Obi-Wan my favorite character. That was Mr. McGregor himself. So in the same way now, I've gone back and I've rewatched Obi-Wan's sacrifice scene, and that little smile when he looks over and sees Luke and Leia together, and you just think like, that's that payoff moment for him where he's like, my job is done. Like, this is what all of it was for. Yeah. And just being able to look at that little smile and think back to the events of this series. I mean, that's just added tremendous depth to that.
Insane.
Just that little look. I mean, that's
how are we how many years has it been? Like close to
45,
50 or 45 years, right? Like how are there any details left in that original film that we can still fill in the gaps? How are we still doing this all this time later? It's insane. Like, what's left? Are we gonna get a whole like TV show about the T-16s or something now? Like, I mean,
we better.
It's just insane to me that we're still telling that same story. That was what locked this in as being the premier sci-fi franchise of human history. Like, it's just nuts.
Yeah, I think what this is going to do for me as well, in addition to like the Leia and the Obi-Wan, I think are absolutely the biggest changes for me. But especially after this episode, every time we see Vader now, he has been so much more threatening in this series to me than he's ever been before. And now I think knowing what Vader is, knowing his actual power, knowing his malice, and I think in this episode, literally watching him admit to murdering Anakin. Like in that way, as the light literally shifts from blue to red, is like gonna make that first scene of him walking out of the Tantive freaking terrifying. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy, and this is like the guy that I saw kill Anakin, that has talked to Obi-Wan, and I am so excited to watch A New Hope again and just watch their conversation in the hallway. To just see what that means to me now, to be like, I was the master, or because when you left me, we all thought, oh, that's on Mustafar. No. that's now this new planet. You left me on my literal knees, and you walked away and refused to grant me the honor of a death, and like showed me mercy again. And I think that's going to be so interesting to carry in. And also, I want to see what it feels like watching Leia console Luke after Kenobi's death.
Mhm.
I want to see, because obviously, this was not part of the script in '77. We get that.
Yeah.
George was like, well, actually, Leia knew. Like, come on. But I'm interested to see if there's any like projecting we can put on Carrie's performance in her eyes when she's consoling Luke, to see if I can find that and maybe fit that in. I think that'll be really fun to play with that.
Well, and you mentioned the dialogue in the hallway, and I want to bring that up because there was a lot of talk, right, about how there were others. This doesn't make sense anymore because all this happening, this and that, and they did a really good job, I think, of tying up loose ends there and making things make sense. But even beyond what I expected, because the fact it is weird if you think back that Obi-Wan says only a master of evil, Darth, like that he calls him Darth.
He calls him Darth.
Not only did he do it in this show as well, but the reason he did it is because he said, "My friend is truly dead. Like, you are not Anakin. You are Darth Vader." Like
that's your first and last name to me now. Like you are Darth and Vader.
That's
you know
incredible.
what I mean? Like, yes, yeah. It's not even like a retcon. It's just like a subtle nod to the dialogue being a little out of whack. Like they must have really gone through every single moment between Obi-Wan and any character basically in episode 4 and like really like tried to play with that to see how they could make it all tie together better. And like everything that Obi-Wan says is interestingly like put together in this show of like, you told me Vader destroyed my father, killed and murdered my father. And he says, well, that was true from a certain point of view. And it is true. It's not a joke. It's not just like a goofy, it's not a joke that they make fun of. Yes. It's not a joke anymore. Like, have you guys seen that? I think it's a Robot Chicken skit, I think, from a certain point of view. I think it's Robot Chicken. Yeah. Where they sang the song, Obi-Wan and Yoda sing the song from a certain point of view about how anything, and Luke's point is like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard of. Like anything could be construed like that. But like, no, now it literally makes sense. Anakin's exact words were or Vader's exact words were, I destroyed Anakin. So I'm just blown away with the dialogue and the writing, the script. If Steven is listening, I loved it. Yeah,
and I think it's really it's so cool that way because we have read the dichotomy of Anakin and Vader in the books a lot, like in Thrawn Alliances and other things. Like Vader, when you're reading him in a Star Wars novel, talks about Anakin as another person, as the Jedi. It's not him remembering his memories. There's really a separation mentally. And I think that's way easier to write than it is to show until now. Now I'm like, oh, I guess that's how you do it, was how they did it in this episode. I thought that was perfect. And I want to ask you guys more about that fight specifically, because obviously that's the showcase of this episode. There's a lot to love here, but the actual rematch of the century, as they put it on Twitter, and that was always the big thing that was going to happen. The actual fight I want to talk about between Vader and Obi-Wan. How did this lightsaber force battle sequence for you guys compare to their other duels? I mean, even Mustafar and the Death Star and the first one, like they've actually fought a weird amount of times.
Yeah,
but I thought this one was just incredible.
Yeah, I think to me, it's crazy. You guys might think this is nuts, but to me, I think this lightsaber combat like is the closest to the epicness of the Revenge of the Sith lightsaber fight, like at the very end of it, that's in existence in Star Wars now, in live action anyway. Like, I
agree.
It was long, there were force powers, like it was like an epic lightsaber battle, and like absolutely the most dueling we've ever seen Vader do. Like, I mean, that was awesome. We've never seen Vader duel somebody. He just comes in and ruthlessly kills everybody, right? So like I don't know. It blew me away.
Hands on the saber at one point too, and I was like, "Oh
he did 2 hands on the saber." I think this is the first time we've ever seen him do that. Like,
I mean, have we ever seen him lose?
No.
Well, Return of the Jedi.
When he's when he actually dies. Yeah, that's fair. But
he only had to lose once.
Yeah, but but really, it was jarring, wasn't it? Like to actually see that happen. But I love how they did it, where it wasn't necessarily that Obi-Wan I think there are a lot of reasons Obi-Wan won, and we can run through those.
Mhm.
Part of it, I think, was the reason behind why he was fighting, because you mentioned in the recap, Eric, when he's under the boulders, at first he's thinking about Anakin and all the hateful things Anakin said over the years and all the stuff that led him down the dark side, and that did not give him the power to get out of that situation. It was not until he thought about Luke and Leia and the future, the hope for the future, the new hope, right? That is what gave him the power to get out there and then go and beat Vader's behind. So, that was really cool. That was a big moment. Also, he didn't just overpower Vader. He did it strategically by attacking the suit and getting it back to just Anakin, right?
Oh, man, the
exactly.
of the suit and then hearing Vader try to breathe like, God, God.
The hearing those gears struggling to let him breathe. I mean, it was visceral. Like it was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it really it highlighted what Anakin said of that Vader, I killed him. Like I killed Anakin. You know what I mean? Like he's gone. Like all that's left is this machine that keeps the old body alive. Like it was incredible. I mean, there's so many subtle details in there. It was really awesome.
Yeah, and I love that they did lean more into the epic side of the fight, because we are kind of seeing these two really for maybe the only time both fighting kind of at the peak of their power, essentially. Like Obi-Wan is fully in tune with the Force by the end. I mean, using all the rocks and everything like that. And then Vader at this point is still incredibly strong in the dark side. Like, this rock moment was just such a... But it wasn't even I am going to kill you, I am going to use... It's like, no, I am so connected with the entire universe now. With every boulder, it's in the rocks, it's in the tree. Like, this is what Yoda meant. This
is Obi-Wan has realized his connection to the Force is still there, Like this is the epic. Exactly. This is the master that was there once before and now he's back, right? And I feel like he figured that out earlier, but this is I'm facing Vader, I'm facing my demons, I'm facing my past, and I still have the Force as my ally, right? It was just...
And that's the interesting thing too, right? Is that with Star Wars, what we've learned more and more is that there's not just people who are super powerful in the Force. It does matter what the will of the Force is too, and it can work through people. So just what I felt like that moment mirrored was Rey lifting all those boulders to let what was left of, the Resistance escape at the end of The Last Jedi. So it's not necessarily, and everyone freaked out, or a lot of people freaked out about that and some of her other Force powers. It's not about that. It's not about who it is, right? It's about this is the will of the Force working through these people. So I loved that parallel.
Yeah. I thought it was really incredible and so well done. And I love the way you phrased that too. Earlier, Charles, I want to talk about my favorite scene here in a second, but I really want to hit on Obi-Wan's use of hope in the future rather than fear of the past. Because I think that for the last 10 years, his solitude on Tatooine has been so based in fear of Luke being found. And you can see it in the first episodes when he's working that little job and going to his AOP, everywhere he turns, he's a little jittery, he's a little worried, he's always so afraid everywhere he goes. And fear is the number one thing he can't do as a Jedi, right? And it's why he loses his connection. It's why it's hard. And I think there's such a beautiful parallel to that with the real world. I mean, Star Wars is always trying to teach us, right? It's always trying to help us out. And I think there is that thing when things that happen can be so scary and so hard that if you are so consumed with fear, then you can't act. You can't actually connect to anything. But if you look towards the future and are like, okay, there is hope, there is light, and I can do, opening yourself up to the universe to accept help and accept power is such a beautiful thing that has been there since George wrote the freaking manuscript. But I truly don't think I saw it as palpably as I had in this episode. So I love that you framed it that way, and I really liked that a lot.
Can I guess what your favorite scene is?
Yeah, man. Go for it.
Is it when that guy was like, "You can wait your turn. You can have the water when I'm done."
Oh, no, dude, get me there.
Listen, that was so out of pocket. I think is the phrase, right?
He was acting out of pocket.
It was so like, it's like, what the hell is happening? Like, this guy, man. This was so random. This was in here. I love that. Like this was such a small writing thing because this guy was a dick earlier in this show, and I love that. I love that Reva just like socked him in the stomach. Right? Isn't that what she did? Did she like punch him?
She used the force and she like basically threw his water cup out and like gave him a little shove.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can kill you with a thought. You're not worth my time. So Charles, I gotta say, close second.
Okay. All right.
My favorite scene is the scene that without any sort of qualification or irony, I believe Ewan McGregor should be nominated for an Emmy for a limited series. And it's the once Vader's helmet is slashed and they had that talk. Ewan McGregor,
yes.
God, Wes, no warning at all. Just throws it up there. Ewan McGregor being completely open in this moment on a huge close-up and saying, I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it, is, I think, for my money, the best acted moment in any Star Wars property. Period.
It was so good. That was my favorite. That was definitely my favorite part really of the whole show. Not of the whole show. I would say of this episode, just it meant so much because he said it before in episode 3. He said, I'm sorry, Anakin, I failed you. And we felt it. But this, I mean, the close-up, and he said it twice, and I was like, damn it, I'm glad I'm alone.
Yep. And that's after he says, I am not your failure, Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
And he's like looking at him, and it's so weird because it's a hard thing to hear. Because like, no, you could not have saved Anakin because Vader already did that. But it's also kind of an absolution of guilt for Obi-Wan. It's like, no, you didn't do this. And I wonder if that last bit of Anakin inside is trying to help his old master in that moment.
Yeah, I wonder that.
And Obi-Wan is like, I know I'm talking to Darth Vader here, but there's a glimmer of blue light. There's a glimmer of Anakin Skywalker, and he needs to know I'm sorry and I love him. That's the last thing he ever says to him.
There's some really interesting stuff in there too that I've seen that I didn't necessarily pick up the first time I watched it. And Eric, I think you brought some of this up, but the side of the mask that was destroyed was the opposite of what was destroyed against Ahsoka. Yep. Is that right? And his eye is actually blue, like Anakin blue, when he's saying some of the things that sound more like Anakin. And then when he once again becomes Vader, the eye is yellow and they bathe his face in the red light of his saber. I mean, it was, there are layers to it, man. Yeah. There are layers.
There really are. Yeah, his face is blue right here and it turns red in a second here. And Obi-Wan representing the light of being blue, and then it fades, and now it's dark again. I'm watching the scene too over here. It's like, he turns red. This is the same way I will destroy you. It's just like, there are so many layers to this. I also love the fact that Obi-Wan like totally utterly kicks his ass right before this. Like after he comes out of when he gets out of the hole with all the rocks and stuff, it's like there's like a level of fierceness to Obi-Wan's fighting that like he didn't have on Mustafar. Like he was in denial, and it's like now he's found it and he realizes what he has to do, right? Like
and he's fighting Vader now 100%. And I think on Mustafar he's still trying to not kill Anakin every time. But now he's trying to save Leia and Luke. And it's like,
and I just don't know. We've not really seen Obi-Wan on the offense very often, like the true aggressive offense, like no mercy, and like he really kicked his ass. Like he threw Vader like at a rock. You remember that? Like he with the Force, like it was incredible. Like he totally he threw him at a rock, and then all the rocks flying at him. Like it was just a lot of violence for Obi-Wan.
He does a lot of stabs, which are not usual.
It was rich, man. Utterly fantastic.
I know we got a bunch of friends in the chat. I know our buddy Jared in the chat might know this, and you guys might know this. I know Obi-Wan's lightsaber fighting style is very specifically the one that is based in defense.
It's
I forget
actual
what it's
defensive.
Called.
I don't remember.
Is his Soresu? Is that him?
I'm trying to remember.
I can't remember.
I know that between the group we got here, someone knows for sure. Because I know that a lot of the canon books about Obi-Wan and things, which again we'll delve more into next week, like they talk about how he just drills the fundamentals, because it's not about overly offensive combat. It's not about like stylistic double. It's just he is rooted. He is a rock. He's like an earthbender in a way of like I am. Form 3. Thank you, Jared. And I love that he got to break that a little bit and just take him down. And that scene, I really hope. I know I know the awards don't matter and blah, 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 but I hope that the genre-ness of this show doesn't get in the way of the power of that performance. And it gets
It was really
remembered.
Yeah.
It was, I feel like it's absolute peak Ewan McGregor. Like,
Yes.
really was. I mean, Ewan's been involved in a lot of projects. I mean, I think his performance in Moulin Rouge is literally one of his best performances of any film he's ever been. Is utterly phenomenal in that film, and I think this rivals that easily. Like,
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
we all love him because he's Ewan McGregor and our Star Wars hero from childhood and everything. But seriously, his performance in this show and the emotion in his face and the close-ups, like you can't fake that shit, man. Like he's just really there, and I feel it. I feel it in his face, the pain between him and Anakin. I know we're all big fans here, but seriously, I think he absolutely killed it. The whole show. Like there wasn't a single moment where Ewan specifically took me out of the show. It felt like I was watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, like without a doubt.
Yeah, I think it was Kumail Nanjiani made a great point about that when he was like getting interviewed early on for the show, and they were like, you know, what was it like? And he's like, I remember I went on set one day, and I was like, oh, I'm talking to Ewan McGregor, having a good time, and then they say action, and then I see Obi-Wan Kenobi walk to me, and I'm like, well, like there's just a difference, and I think we saw it so much here. But of course, not the only thing that happened in the episode. One of the biggest ones. We also had, you know, amazing Owen and Beru sawed-off shotgun rednecks defending their home, which was great. But I want to ask you guys about Reva. Obviously, a character that's gone back and forth for some folks. We've really liked her on this show, especially getting her backstory last week. I already have 2 Funkos pre-ordered. Like, we know what we're doing. But I want to ask you guys about her final act here. Her decision to spare Luke, abandon the Inquisitor life, literally throw down the lightsaber. How'd you like the Reva redemption story? And just pure speculation, what do you think might be next for Reva as a character, both in universe and maybe also as far as just projects go?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this character arc. I feel like her story from start to finish, now that we've seen the whole thing, is very good and very interesting, and is a much more interesting Inquisitor story than we've ever gotten before, in my opinion. You know, we got a similar kind of a Inquisitor story in the Jedi Fallen Order game. We got a similar kind of Inquisitor story with the Grand Inquisitor, whatever his name was, when he was a Jedi, and we got the whole arc in Rebels, right? Like we have a couple of different Inquisitor arcs now, right? And I think this one is the most interesting to me. Like especially with the parallels with Vader and having been trained by him personally and all this kind of stuff. Like I liked her character arc. I like that she couldn't do it in the end. Yeah. Like, because I didn't think it made a whole lot of sense for her. Why would she want to go back and kill Luke? It doesn't make sense. It's just like vengeance and revenge because maybe this kid is somehow important to who Vader is. And like,
I gotta finish
he's part
my
of the
mission.
story.
This is all I've done. This is all I've been asked
exactly.
to do. Like,
all I do is like, I'm gonna do. It's like, why? It's like she's just so unhinged, and it's a beautiful arc, and I don't know where it's gonna go now. I love that Obi-Wan gave her the choice of like, your path is what you make it now. That was just really a beautiful touch to her story arc, and I liked it a lot. Like I can see some of the criticism of Reva's performance as a character and how that would rub people wrong in some ways, like with her acting and the way that she's kind of unhinged. And people didn't like that. And I guess maybe some of that is valid. I liked it a lot. I thought it fit her story well.
Her
But
moment of realization here when she was like literally crying and trying to find words, and Obi-Wan's just like, "You're good."
It was well acted too. Yeah. I mean, I liked it a lot. So, you know,
when not to make it about Ewan, but when she said like she's failed them, talking about the other Padawans, and he says you've honored them. That was another one of those lines that really hit me.
Yeah.
I agree. I love that Reva's still with us because I think there's a lot more interesting story we can tell with that character. A lot of people felt that way with was it the fourth sister? Is that which sister it was from Jedi Fallen Order? Yeah,
second sister.
Yeah. Second sister. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people felt that way about that character. They felt like it was a shame that she died because that was a really interesting story, and we can get something very similar here with Reva. So,
well, come on, was she stabbed in the stomach though in Fallen Order? Because as we know now, that doesn't do anything.
That's fair. I will say, I think that the character was acted incredibly well. I agree with you. The one small thing where I'm like, I don't know that this 100 adds up to me. I didn't understand, like you're saying, Corey, what killing Luke was going to achieve in her mind.
Yeah.
And she was unhinged in the moment, like you're saying. I like that word. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense. Like maybe she's just got that crazy in that moment. Like, but that didn't fully line up for me. I'm glad, obviously, that she didn't do it. I liked how they had it happen too. I loved that she saw
flashbacks and
herself.
Stuff.
That was herself.
Yeah, that was really good.
Bring herself to do it. And I also love just one more shot at all these people saying the showrunners don't know what they're doing. Everyone's like, oh, so Luke's just going to get kidnapped by someone with a red lightsaber and not remember it in 10 years or whatever. No, that's not what happened. He never saw her. He thought it was Tuskens. Like, they did it perfectly. So
yeah, they did.
And one more thing. I'm so sorry. I'm talking a lot. I love that Obi-Wan didn't have to stop her. I love that she stopped herself.
Yes.
Me too.
That was important.
I want to come back and talk about Owen and Brew in a minute. Yeah.
I think it was a really good idea to have that different perspective as an Inquisitor, because all of the Inquisitors that we've seen, not all of them, but most of them have been just like Empire officials. They are very steadfast. They don't have any kind of opinions. They go with orders. And she was completely. She was askew. So she had different beliefs. She when she go unhinged. So that I think when she was going after Luke, she was like that was the final straw. Something that she can hurt Anakin with, because she's been hurt so bad is by killing Luke or maiming Luke, doing something. Even though he doesn't know that Luke is his son, he'll eventually know. He'll find out sometime. So I thought that was a great. I think that was a great part to put in there, and she's a great character. But fortunately, I don't really care much for her redemption arc. Over the main redemption we're seeing of Vader. I mean, this is like a small redemption story for the main redemption story that we're trying to see here. I mean, I don't know that I've seen it more often recently. Maybe that's why I'm kind of numb to it. But I mean, I like to. I don't know if I'd like to see another show about it, but I definitely read about what happens from here, or what happened between her as like leaving leaving Coruscant and then becoming an Inquisitor. That would be pretty interesting to read about.
That'd be cool.
But the redemption story here, I mean, not for me, but I mean, she was a great actress for sure.
Yeah, I want to know how she got to the Inquisitors. That's what I'm most interested in. Because Anakin killed her, and then she pretended to be dead. How did she get there? Yeah, and I can get behind that. I mean, I think the few points, there's like two categories of criticism about Reva. There's like this over here crazy, far out there, ridiculous, which is just kind of racist commentary, right? But you also have like, so there is some legitimate people kind of have iffy moments about her. She to me is like a little like Jyn Erso in Rogue One to me. Like, I was not crazy about Felicity Jones's performance the first time I saw Rogue One. Like, there's something about just her neutralness that didn't really quite fit with all the action and, some of that kind of stuff that I just didn't really love her as a character. But now that I've seen that so many times at this point, I'm completely numb to the performance at this point. I don't give a shit about it. And now I just love the character and the story. And I've learned to adapt my perception to what I see on screen in a way. And now I love that. And I think Reva's personality and her story arc is just so weird and different from anything we've ever seen before that, like, I think it rubbed people wrong in some ways. But I think once we finally get some more of those details filled in later on, like you say, then I think it'll make a lot more sense. And is that a little annoying to have to do in a TV show? Yeah, sure. Of course it is. But like, at the same time, that's also the joy of the Star Wars universe. Is it all doesn't, you don't have to get you don't have to be spoon fed every single tiny little detail. Like, just because here's this new character, you don't need her life story and who her parents were and like, what her zodiac sign is. You don't need all that shit, right? Like,
even though we will find out somehow.
I know. Listen, this show was about Obi-Wan and Vader, and Reva helped us tell that story. All right, and that's the point of that. That's the point of her. That's the point of her character arc, and I think it leaves a lot to be wanting. But I personally like walking away from a show without every single thing being answered, like Tala, for example. I'm sort of hurt in a little way that, they introduced this cool character. She seems like she's got an interesting story. She's undercover Empire. We haven't seen that in anything really very often.
I love that show.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We haven't got that yet. Undercut for Empire. Yeah. But then they killed her. They killed her off, right? And that was a little dissatisfying in a lot of ways, right? We have this cool and interesting character, and they kill off. And yes, you don't want all the shows to be, all the characters to be, so steadfast you can't kill them off. But it is also a little disappointing that you introduce and kill off a character. So I appreciate that they left someone with an open-ended story that can later be expanded on. I love that.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where she goes. Obviously, would love to see Moses Ingram back to do it in live action.
Same.
But if they do some Reva stuff in a comic or a book, please, Lucasfilm, Marvel, whatever, hire a black woman to write it. They would be great at it. Let black women tell black women's stories. I think it'd be great. But obviously, if we can get Moses back on screen, if she's got some time, all about it. Now, Corey, you did mention this before. Let's go to our favorite, living in the dirt road, just living on their farm and ready to beat anyone that comes. Owen and Beru. You want to talk about characters that are getting a little bit of an upgrade when I watch New Hope next time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm seeing Beru in the kitchen being like, she's got at least 4 guns hidden in that kitchen.
Yes. Oh
I
my
loved
God.
them in this episode. And I mean, the whole series,
Same.
but this was obviously their scene to shine. And I thought both of them were just, I completely believe that Luke is going to be fine. Now, just with the two of them.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I think it's what we were supposed to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and look at what we learned about Beru. I liked that Beru was kind of the one taking the lead in that scenario,
Yeah.
right? Like she tossed the gun to Owen. I kind of wasn't even sure if he knew that those guns were stashed where they were. Like,
hope
it kind
he
of seemed like he's like, "What are you doing?"
I know. It's like, guns
here
hitting
in
the
this
wall
whole-
here. It's like, yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, but it makes sense too because think about what we know about Beru from like the Queen's trilogy, right?
Right.
Now with like the White Sons and stuff like that. So that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Am I
Yeah.
remembering that? Yeah.
And
So-
even all the way back to the movie, like she's the one that says he's not a farmer, Owen. Like she is the
Yeah.
one that's being like,
I know. That's a good point.
she's
That's a good
understood it
point.
from day one.
Yes, and they didn't have to retcon anything with this either, too, because what you
Nope.
bring up, I didn't even realize that until you said that. I think it was you that said that, Charles. That Luke has never seen a lightsaber. He never saw the lightsaber, right? Like,
Right, he never
and-
did.
Yeah, he never saw the lightsaber, and he kind of is that how he got knocked unconscious? Did he fall? Is that
She
how he-
used the
Force
Force and
pushed him.
essentially tripped him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a child."
Oh yeah. So he didn't even like really even experience the Force either, right? I
No.
mean, like, yeah, they handled that beautifully. Yeah, and also you also have to appreciate the kind of hilarity that is Owen and Beru kicking ass. Like,
Yeah.
it's hilarious, and the internet has just been on fire. My favorite meme that anybody has shared is this. I'm going to read you this tweet. It says, "This isn't." It's showing Burns, like the bodies, the graphic skeletal bodies that are weirdly in A New Hope.
God.
That is
Yeah.
is still kind of weird. Okay, it's showing that picture, and it says, This picture isn't Owen and Beru. It's 2 stormtroopers that Beru beat the shit out of and stole their uniforms. They now roam the galaxy as soldiers of fortune. If you need help and you can find them, maybe you can hire the Beru crew."
Yes.
That's hilarious.
That's
Just
pretty
like-
good.
Yeah, that was one of
not?
my when I watched this episode and I came to hang out with my friends, talk about Kenobi or whatever. We like one of the the bullet points I made is I loved when Owen smacked the shit out of Reva. That was hilarious
Yep.
and fantastic, and
Great.
I love it. I like seeing kind of badass Owen and Beru. I didn't think we were going to get that in this show. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't have to go there, but it was done well. And like they're fighting somebody with a lightsaber that's obviously so much stronger with them. So they have to be clever and like fighting with a
Also-
sawed-off shotgun. Like,
Also, though, Beru was like the superior fighter. Like, not only was she the one that had the guns stashed and stuff. Did y'all notice like Owen was like kicking flower pots down at Reva, and it's like, Owen, what are you doing, bro?
She did like a sneak attack jump, like a jump attack. I'm like, yeah.
yeah, I know.
I love her with that.
I love the telling Luke that is Tuskens too. That was really interesting and clever.
So smart.
Like,
Yeah.
So smart. Yeah. So I loved them. Luke's gonna be just fine. It opens up Obi-Wan to go on other stories if he wants. Which I think is, I never thought we'd ever get to. We all talked exhaustively before the show happened that we didn't think that was possible, but I think they did it really well. And then of course we got the second family that we see at the end, the Organas. I mean, one of my personal favorite families on my favorite planet. I loved everything about the little mini reunion we had. You know, Leia wearing Tala's holster with Lola in it now. Oh, that was such a great
so good.
touch.
So
then,
good.
and also like Obi-Wan, I know obviously I love Bail, that's my whole thing, but Obi-Wan and Bail hugging I thought was such a great callback to like some of the Legends things that they've had with like the adventures that they went on that not a lot of people know about. Like these guys are legit wartime friends. And I think that this strengthening the bond of Obi-Wan and Bail and of the Organas as a whole is so important. And in an episode of great speeches, Obi-Wan's talked to Leia about, I told you I didn't know your parents, but here's how amazing your mother and your father were. And it's kind of like him eulogizing Padme and Anakin to the only one that can actually understand it. And I thought that was great. And Vivian Lee Blair, I mean, we haven't mentioned her at all in this episode yet, but I mean, this little girl is a freaking powerhouse.
Yeah, she killed it. She was the shocking, I think, character highlight for me out of the whole show is like how utterly phenomenal she played this character as a 10-year-old girl. Like, I mean, Eric, how much acting experience did you have when you were 10 years old? Like, I mean,
and she was 8 when they started filming. She was
I mean,
younger.
that's crazy.
I couldn't memorize a sentence that age. Like she
totally killed it. One of the best like child performances, seriously, I feel like I've ever seen in a TV show. Like for her age is just nuts. And I love that she was so into it too. Like all the photos that I've seen online of her and like tweets, like she seems so happy and like like it's so fun for her, and like no, she doesn't realize how big it is that this has happened. And but it's great. I loved her.
Yeah. And what a great way to end it too, to be like, we get to see that Obi-Wan's still alive. We get to acknowledge, hey, I'd love to see you, but we can't because then it might be dangerous. So like, even if they never see each other again, it totally makes sense now. It's a really nice way to kind of send her off. And again, now Leia becomes that character that's like the Leia we see in Princess of Alderaan, which takes place, I think, less like 5 or 6 years later, when she's a younger teenager. Like we get to see that expand into there, and I really loved just everything this did for her. And then,
in the moment, the moment with the moment where he told her little Leia about her parents was heartbreaking. Holy smokes, it was heartbreaking. I loved it.
Gifts from your father.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I love that the Organas let it happen too. Like, obviously that. I mean, you know, that was
true.
A little bit of a butthole clenching moment for them. Probably it's like, oh shit, don't say Darth Vader. You know, like. Yeah, it was beautiful though. It was a beautiful moment between them, and like it was such a nice closure to their relationship. And we don't really know if they ever meet again. Like maybe in canon storytelling, maybe they'll go there again. I don't know. It doesn't really seem like it. This seems like a nice closure to the story between Obi-Wan and Leia, but I thought it concluded beautifully.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of just closing loose ends that they've opened up in episode 1 or part 1. So they did masterful.
Yeah.
They left it open to where if they want to meander with novels, comics, TV show, even they can do that too.
Whatever.
So
I also want to point out that I thought they did a good job of showing how mature Leia was, but also still giving her those kid moments. So it's not like it was unbelievable, right? That a kid could feasibly be this mature. And the one that got me in this episode, let me tell you, is when Obi-Wan arrived on Alderaan and he like steps out and he's like so happy to see her. And then Lola comes out too. And she's like, Lola, and like runs for the droid rather than like hugging Obi-Wan. That's total kid move. Like you show up to a birthday party with the gift and they like just grab the gift and run away. And you're like, cool, great to see you. Like
exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And then of course, as we're getting near the end of the episode, a couple more things we're gonna talk about. 5 words for you guys. Ben, you want to meet him? just carve my heart open at this moment. And like, one, Joel Edgerton, what a great job playing Owen all these years later. Understated. You can see him figuring out, is this a good idea? Is it not a good idea? And then we get freaking straight up Obi-Wan mythos statue goggles Kenobi.
Goggles.
I know.
Walking over and oh my God, what a great.
It was such a short conversation. It was a nice thing. And it makes it, it also makes it clear that like Luke doesn't have much of an interaction with him, right? So when at the table, like they're talking in episode 4, they're talking about the droids, and he's like, "Do you think he might meet old Ben Kenobi?" You think they're related? Like that's it. That's
Yeah.
all he knows.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh, my
this wasn't-
dad's friend from when I was 10. Is that him?
Yeah.
That old
Oh,
guy?
that's just a crazy old wizard. Like, yeah, I mean, it was great, and I love that he let him have the toy too. We got to
Yeah.
see the closure of that,
Yes,
like from earlier. The
good.
little what's this thing? What's the thing called?
The
Shit, he talks about it. It's what Luke says. I used to bullseye womp rats with back home. What is that?
I thought
T16.
It's
Yeah.
T16.
No.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what the stormtroopers are talking about all the time? Is this thing that Luke plays with in episode 4? Is that the T16?
That's the T16, but
I don't know. Now, see, now you've stumped everybody.
Skyhopper. I
man.
think the stormtroopers are talking about something else.
Yeah, I think so too. Anyway, yeah, it was great. It was cool, fun to getting to see the dang goggles too, because that was like in some promo stuff. So in the statue,
Yep.
that was great.
Yep, that was great. Love that moment. Love that we got that little bit of care. They saved the hello there for the perfect moment.
Oh my god,
It didn't feel memed. It didn't feel like a
perfectly done.
joke. It was just like they
And
nailed
there
it. Oh,
Charles is
and
getting
then
We've
flipped.
we've lost my video because someone was just calling me. But
Yeah, I know.
but
Okay, man.
you can still hear me. So
yes.
the thing about it is they actually didn't do a ton of like callbacks that they could have done, because I'm not gonna lie, when Vader was standing over the hole that he threw Obi-Wan in, I was sure he was gonna make a comment about the high ground.
Now I have
So
the high
it's I,
ground.
you're right.
Yes.
And
How's
right.
it feel
so-
being down low, loser? Like, it definitely
Got
could have
the
gone
high
there.
ground now.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so good that they didn't, and they
Yeah.
saved it for really important moments. Will I ever see you again? Right from Leia, echoing
Uh-huh.
what
Oh.
Anakin asked me.
Yep.
Hello there. Like, I mean, they did just the right amount for me, and I'm sure people
wasn't-
feel different
yeah.
ways, but it was
Yep.
well done, I think.
There wasn't
Yes.
a single moment that I felt like was eye rolling fan service to me. Not a single
completely.
one. Like
Completely.
I famously did not like when Luke lifted the X-wing out of the ocean in The Rise of Skywalker. I hated that scene. It felt like
thank
goofy
you.
fans. Like that was way too much, right? Way too much. Like.
Yep.
You know, you just have to do it subtly. And you're right, Charles. They totally nailed it. I was absolutely expecting a high ground comment.
Yeah.
I was absolutely expecting it. And I didn't. We didn't get it because Vader's dead, all right? Like,
Yeah.
Vader, or Anakin is dead,
Anakin's
right?
dead.
Like, Anakin's dead. So, you know, Vader doesn't
need it.
care about that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we get through all that, and then of course the last moment, we all knew it was coming, whether it was going to be a voice, a ghost, but then we get freaking Liam Neeson himself comes in, and he did an interview this past week about it. It was like, yeah, of course I wanted to come back. This was great. How did this land for you guys? It was short. It was sweet. I mean, obviously taking
Perfect.
Obi-Wan towards his next chapter. Yeah, I thought this was
It was great.
exactly what
It
it
was
should have been.
perfect. It was
Yeah.
perfect. I like that we got to see him, right? Like we got to
Yes.
see him, like
Yes.
That
like
was
every other.
shocking.
Yeah,
But
me
come
too.
on,
I
enough.
wasn't
Sassy.
expecting. Yeah, he's sassy, and we got to see him. Like you know, it was kind of cool to hear all the voices in the Rise of Skywalker. But
Yeah.
I still wish there would have been Ghost there, man. I wish there would have been Force Ghost there. I wanted that so bad, and like to get him, and
Aw.
he turns around, and he's like, "What took you so long?" It's like, what is he talking about here? By the way, guys, is he talking about Obi-Wan's like rejuvenation with the Force? Is that what he's talking about?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
like,
what
I've
I
always been
took
here.
it
You
as.
just couldn't see it, and I think that's his thing of like you were not connected to the Force wholly, and that's the only way you could have talked to me is if you were keyed in. Now you're keyed back in, and now I'm ready to teach you.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know if this is a book, a comic, or a movie where it's like you weren't ready to be taught. Is very much I feel like a Jedi thing of like why are we meditating so much? And Padawans is like
Yeah.
after 3 years like cool, you ready to learn now? You know?
Yeah, if they didn't try to drive this point home of how Obi-Wan finally opened himself up to the Force to be able to see Qui-Gon, not act and to communicate with him, then I would have definitely thought this was fan service. This was a fan service
Yes, I
moment
agree
to
with
throw
that.
him in there. But they added that piece to where, look, you are able to see me now because you have brought yourself back into the Force. You can use the living Force, young Padawan, to be able to communicate with me, and now you can teach others to do the same.
Well, and it was actually a big deal. I want to rewind for a second. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a big deal to show Qui-Gon's Force Ghost, because it had always kind of been insinuated, if not explicitly stated somewhere, that Qui-Gon figured out how to keep his, I don't know, I don't want to say personality, but like his self kind of within the greater Force.
Mhm.
But he was just figuring it out. So he didn't kind of fully have his form Whereas Yoda continued to learn from him. He did, right? Obi-Wan continued to learn. He did. I think that's in something. We never have seen his Force Ghost actually pop up, but we did.
Is it in from a certain point of view?
I think it's from a certain point of view. The Master and Apprentice story by
well.
Claudia Gray. I meant to reread this before this episode, but a lot of people have been talking about it. And Alex Damon actually did an episode on it over on Star Wars Explained. It was like a short. But yeah.
But that could imply that it's not just the Force user who died and as a part of the Force that's in charge of that. It could also have to do with the person perceiving them. Maybe Luke is part of the reason he was able to see his father again, and Obi-Wan and Yoda at the end of Rajay. Like maybe there's more of that aspect.
Hold, please.
Yes.
Page 82. If you're following along in your hymnals, Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. It says, Qui-Gon has been summoned. He draws upon his memories of himself and takes shape, reassembling the form he last had in life. It seems to him that he feels flesh wrap around bones, hair and skin over flesh, robes over skin, and then as naturally to him as though he had done so yesterday, he pulls down the hood of his Jedi cloak and looks upon his Padawan. And although this is later, because Obi-Wan has white hair at this point, so this is later down the road. So I think you're absolutely right, Charles. It took him a while to get there. We knew he was eventually going to get there talking to old Obi-Wan, but it's good to know now in the timeline he had gotten there by this point.
Yeah. What do y'all make of his comment? Sorry, Corey.
About
there's a ways to go, like home, like to get back to your cave, like, or is there more stuff that's going to happen?
We moved.
He's a lot to learn. He has a lot to learn. I feel like, a lot to learn about like his role in this whole story, like his role in what the future holds, like his role in his responsibility to Luke, and because he did tell Owen earlier in the show that Luke must be trained, right? Like he said, Luke must be trained. So like it kind of implies that it's Obi-Wan's intention to, as soon as Luke starts showing, as Owen said, like Obi-Wan's going to take him and make him be a Jedi, right? That's kind of how it's implied. And that is not what we see Obi-Wan do in episode 4 at all. Like Obi-Wan is very much a passive observer. Like I'm just here to kind of point you in the right direction. And I think that's what Qui-Gon is talking about, is what he knows because of his connection to the Force. This is what the future holds. So good question, Charles.
We're back in school, buddy.
I've been thinking about that one too, about like what is he talking about with this is a ways to go.
Yeah. And
also it could just be a hell of a long way to this little hut where he's gonna live now. He's been living in a cave. He packed up his cave, right?
Yeah,
so
he's living somewhere new.
Find his hut.
You gotta find his new rental, man. Property value is rough. They got a lot of people just buying up all the caves on Tatooine, turning them into Airbnb. But I do like the idea, as Insane Membrane says in the chat, if we get a second season, I want to see Obi-Wan doing the same adventure that Yoda did in the Clone Wars. They're trying to figure out how to commune. I think that's cool, and I think even if we don't, because we might be done with this, and I want to go further into this next week as we kind of get a little more speculative on the series as a whole. I think even if we get no more Obi-Wan content, this gives us a little nudge to know that he was going to learn how to do this. So when he comes back in Empire, it makes sense how he got there. It makes it like everything makes sense. I know we've said this a bunch during this episode, especially you, Corey, like all the canon stuff now just makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that it didn't make sense earlier, but now it's just a little tighter.
Yeah, I totally agree. The last comment I want to have about Qui-Gon is John Jackson Miller tweeted out this week, which is fantastic. He's the original writer of the Kenobi book, the Legends Kenobi book, which was really one of the last Legends books to be written. It's pretty new still. I think it was like 2012 or something like that is when this book came out. Like it's still pretty new, I think. Yeah. He tweeted that I've said that Obi-Wan Kenobi coexists cleanly with my Kenobi novel, which was set far earlier. But even more gratifying is it aligns perfectly with a major story choice we made in the book. Readers will know which one. And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the decision to wait to make Qui-Gon not show up in Obi-Wan's life until much later. And he references his blog, farawaypress.com, and he has a lot of he's told us about this when we interviewed with him, and Legends Look Back has also interviewed him. You got to go find that episode of like, there was a lot of talk amongst the writers at the time of they coordinated like how Qui-Gon was going to show up with Obi-Wan's story. So it's cool that we talked about this a lot, and we're going to do a full episode, I think, on the Living Force all about Kenobi, the show, and how it fits into canon and all that kind of stuff. But It's really cool to see even the author, John Jackson Miller, who followed and tweeted weekly about the Kenobi episodes, how much he loved it. It's cool to see that this book still exists beautifully with the show, and like maybe we don't have to take it out of our recommendations for first reads anymore because it does exist. It doesn't. Charles, you won the argument right there. You know, like,
you can take credit for something I had no part in.
If the author himself says that this book exists perfectly with this TV show and in no way is a problem, then I mean, there you have it. There you have it. So this is my new answer, because my old answer was like, pick up Kenobi if you want a familiar character and you want to taste the legends. Now my answer was, how did you feel about the Kenobi TV show? Did you like it? If so, I have this really great book that I think you'll like that exists perfectly with the show. So it's really cool to see that from the author, and that is something we were all a little bit worried about with this. Yeah. Not worried, it's not the right word, but we knew it could be retconned, and that would make people mad.
Yeah, or redone, or redone,
which we didn't need. But yeah, and then that leads us off quite literally into the sunset to see where it comes next, and there might be more. It might be done. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy has said we're open to it, and I mean, come on, let's be realistic. If something makes money and people want to do it, they're gonna keep making it. So we'll see. We got. I
can't believe that. By the way, that's insane to me.
To even make it an option. To even
to even openly say that it's even an option is just what era is this of Star Wars that we live in, where like they can bring back characters like Hayden and Ewan and do one successful TV show, then like I don't know, it went pretty well, I think we'll do another. Like come on, like that is just like give it to me.
I think Ewan said too in a magazine that he would love to come back and do one of these like every 5 or 10 years.
He did. He's like, I mean, yeah, let's keep going.
Give me more, man.
Why not?
We did get the Emperor. We got the Emperor right before.
I forgot about that. Right? Okay, yeah. We have to talk about that scene for a moment, because that was such a clever conclusion to the Obi-Wan Darth Vader arc of like Vader is sitting in his chair and he's like, don't worry, Master, we're going to find him. We're going to do everything we can. I'm going to send out all the troops. I'm going to find him, and the Emperor's like, is your loyalty to me or is it to Obi-Wan? I thought we had left your past in the past. Is this a sign of weakness? And he's like,
what if you instead didn't?
Exactly.
Obi-Wan is living in Vader's head rent-free, and that's what's keeping him. That little bit of good within him is in there because Obi-Wan is in there just torturing him.
Yeah.
But his master is also using it. He's using it to torture him. He's using it to torture him, that I have this power over you.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And it also perfectly explains why didn't Vader just go find Obi-Wan and all this time? It perfectly explains that, right? We don't need to know now because the Emperor is using it to control Vader, right?
Holding Vader's leash, as it were. And I love Ian McDiarmid just coming into Star Wars every couple of years. This one, I bet they're like, okay, you don't really need that many hours in the makeup chair at this point. You're kind of old, man. I love you. This looks just like straight up Ian McDiarmid in a hood. And I'm like, great. Excellent. I'm glad he got it. Yeah. I mean, so I think that I agree. If there is more Obi-Wan to come, I think Ewan makes sense. I don't think we'll get Hayden again. I mean, if they can fit him in, maybe. But I truly do think in my heart of hearts, this show happened because they had a good enough story that they pitched and they made it happen. If there's not a good enough story, we're not going to get it for a while. And that's okay because there's so much coming down the pipe, obviously. I mean, Andor starts in less than 2 months from today.
That's right.
There is so much content on the way that they're going to wait until they got the scripts and they got the narrative that can work. But from what we've seen...
I want to give, if Hayden comes back, I want to give him more of a chance to be like the goofy, cringy Hayden that we had in Attack of the Clones. Like I want a Clone Wars, a live action Clone Wars episode or something like that. Like I really do want something live action Clone Wars. Like I would love to get some Special Troopers Clone Wars or something like that. But like you could maybe bring Hayden back for that. Maybe he just has a cameo. He leads a bunch of troops in the battle, but please give him a terrible line. Give him something awful and bad. Like just do
the
it.
Very thing you swore to destroy.
All right. I love it. Hey, Hayden, here's the thing. You know how people made fun of you for 25 years because of the dialogue and you're just now kind of psychologically realizing
now
that?
It's a
what
meme.
If we have a new one for you?
Now it's a meme. All right, so now you have to do it. Yeah, like he would probably think it was funny at this point. Now all these years,
like,
He's been to therapy, so now he can. Now he
He's been to therapy,
now he
lives
can
on a
talk
farm.
about it.
Can cry into his
I know.
$100 bills.
I know exactly.
Well, we'll see if that happens. But I do know, as we said, guys, the next show coming up is going to be Andor. Less than 2 months. That is going to be when
2
Bounty Hunt
months.
returns.
Can you believe that? 2 months? We only have 2 months until the next live action show, and it's Andor, a show that we've known about literally forever. They announced this project way too early, and we've known about this for like how many? Like 2 years now.
I'm
like
not going to
about-
be done talking about this one when
I
the next
know.
one comes out.
That's
2 months.
exactly it, man.
The teaser trailer for Andor was so freaking good. Everybody was
Yes.
so
It's so
excited.
good.
They celebrated.
It's going to be Rogue One vibes, Rogue One writers, Rogue One cast, Mon Mothma taking over bonk, thirsty Twitter. I'm ready for it, but also not ready at all. My Obi-Wan Funkos, I think, will be here 2 weeks before Andor starts. So that's where I am.
Man.
I can't wait, and we'll be back for that every weekend. Again, recapping. I hope they don't just drop like 3 episodes in a row to start. But we'll be back for that. And of course, we'll be back every single Monday night doing the Living Force. And as a last reminder, a week from tomorrow, which will be the 4th of July. Oh my goodness. We'll have a 4th of July show talking about Obi-Wan in its entirety. Talking about a little more canon book stuff to kind of get your full ideas on that. But fellas, it has been another great season of Bounty Hunt. Any final thoughts before we take less than 2 months off and do it again?
This one's going to be hard to beat. This is a damn good show. I mean,
Yeah.
Ewan has
I
set the
like
bar
this
so
television
high.
program.
Yeah, I think all of us are pretty much in agreement that this has been our favorite and is the best live action show we've had so far. And if this is like it took them this long to meet this standard, then like we're here. I mean, Mandalorian season 1 was fantastic.
Yeah, that
Mandalorian season 2 was knocked our socks off. Boba Fett was kind of the iffy. They took some risk and didn't pay off in some small ways, and then we got this show. And like if this is what it took us to get to Andor and then the Ahsoka show, then everything else that's coming, it's just like
Skeleton
live action
Crew.
I don't even care about a film at this point. Literally, if they announced if they announced tomorrow and showed us a teaser trailer for Rogue Squadron, I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it, just
fun
like
when that
all the
comes.
other things. But like they've just gotten, and that's such a testament to just how good the TV is. It's just every week we get to talk about it, and the pacing's good, and I love that it's not all binge released. Like it's just Star Wars live action TV is the era that we're in right now, and we're probably going to be here for a while because they just keep doing it so well. So man, they killed it. The show is so good. We didn't manage our expectations at all, and they.
But it was amazing.
I also want to say that literally everything that I predicted was going to happen, that I was kind of like hoping was going to be in there, literally happened. Like all of them did. Loved it.
Freaking hoping Obi-Wan Kenobi over here, and he nailed it. And let's not also forget that there is season 2 of The Bad Batch. Tales of the Jedi is also coming out this year. All that stuff's coming out this year. Never sleep on a Wednesday again. Sorry, guys. It's Star Wars time. But, my goodness. On that 10 out of 10 note, I will say, amazing show. We're going to talk about it more in a week. But for right now, my friends, that'll do it. For this season of Bounty Hunt, keep your eyes out for our next hunt. We'll be diving into episode 1 of the Cassian Andor television show. My gosh, a special thank you goes out to Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, and Carl Stander on our Jedi High Council, and Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C, and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. Keep telling us all your thoughts about Obi-Wan in our Discord community at utini.com/discord, and follow the main show on Twitter at LivingForcePod, and all of us individually for our thoughts about all things Star Wars at Eric Eilerson, at Corey M. Helton, at C. Hankel, and at Boss Wes. Until next time, we are sorry for all of it.